I'm about to head out on the very first blind date of my life, and I'm feeling crazily optimistic. Crazy being the operative word. Anyone with a shred bit more dating experience than me, and that includes most women over the age of, say, 14, can tell you the proper attitude towards a blind date is one of extreme caution, and perhaps just a soak-on of hope. But the last time I went on any kind of date, it was a different century. Literally. There might have been shoulder pads involved. So I'm approaching blind dating with rose-colored blinders on. Dating requires patience and may require many trials and tribulations, especially if you have a kid. After 10 years of marriage and 1 year of mourning her husband's death, Emily ventures out for her very first date in months and her very first blind date ever. This is Sex and the Single Mom by Emily Listfield. This was all my boss Sally's idea. It was time she decided for me to get out there. She began to give my phone number to every single eligible and under 80 man she ran across. Yes, I agreed to this plan. I was a widow with a full-time job and a 6-year-old. I wasn't exactly hanging out in bars meeting people. Sally met Mark at a cocktail party, and after a 10-minute chat, which she confirmed he had no arrest record, of course, she promptly gave him my number. Mark's specs seemed great. Early 40s, divorced, steady job, and handsome. According to Sally, whose words I will never take on anything ever again. When he called the next day, I agreed to go out to dinner and to the theater. This was a major rookie error. Rule number 1. Never agree to meet a blind date for anything more than coffee or drinks. And for added insurance, have a friend call 20 minutes into it, claiming a babysitting emergency. Her fever is how high? I'll be right there. 5 minutes before my big date, I stand in the living room for a last-minute outfit check by my daughter Sasha and the babysitter Joyce. We're all a little giddy after all. This is an adventure for them too. I've bought a new dress for the first time in months and do a little twirl for their approval. Rule number 2. Do not, I repeat, do not go major dress shopping before a blind date. If the evening goes well, you'll be sorry you didn't save your clothing allowance for the all-important second date. And if it doesn't, you'll be exceedingly cranky when your American Express bill arrives. I'm about to leave when Sasha races to her room and comes back with a drawing of a brilliant, huge rainbow. If you like it, give it to him, she instructs gravely. If not, bring it home. Clearly, we are both very new to this. This kind of raw hopefulness will never surface again. I carefully fold it and put it in my bag. I envision this act becoming a part of our story. The story Mark and I will tell in years to come about the night we first met. I kiss Sasha goodnight and head out. Mark is waiting for me in front of the theater. From a distance, he looks exactly as Sally described him. 6 feet tall, dark suit, head full of hair, and handsome. I don't know what all my single friends are complaining about. I'm loving this dating thing. As I get closer, though, this image begins to go seriously awry. Mark is wearing a 3-inch wide neon Winnie the Pooh tie with Tigger, an enormous, shocking pink Tigger that takes up half of his chest. particularly glad to see me either. In fact, he looks downright bored before we even exchange the hellos. Nevertheless, I decide to overlook his sartorial misjudgment. Ties can always be lost by the dry cleaners, right? And his surliness. I smile gamely, and we head to dinner across the street at an Arby's. Listen, I don't need the Four Seasons. I wasn't exactly envisioning that. But I expected something with, at least cloth napkins. Conversation does not exactly flow. Mark sits sullenly and doesn't ask me a single question about my life. I try to pick up the slack. I think to myself, I got this. I can do this. After all, I've been known to get information out of a 6-year-old. 2 minutes into it, though, Mark starts twitching and head bobbing maniacally. I'm not talking a little tick. I'm talking Tourette's. And let me go on record as saying I have nothing at all against neurological disorders. But this does bring up some etiquette issues, and it would have been nice if Sally had told me. Am I supposed to pretend it's not happening? Do I tell him, it's okay, I bite my nails when I'm nervous? Before you start feeling sorry for him, let me add that the only piece of information I truly got out of him the whole evening was that he was involved in some kind of religious cult. While Mark mumbles something about a rebirthing class that changed his entire life, all I can think about is what will happen if he starts to bark in the theater. I have one moment of hope on the walk over when the twitching stops, and I quickly realize that the twitching does not happen when standing, only when sitting. This, by the way, is Sally's defense, as she only saw him standing. Unfortunately, it's extremely difficult to avoid sitting at a movie theater. I fantasize about going to the bathroom and never coming back, but even under extreme circumstances, that seems, well, a little too extreme. Somehow, I make it through what feels like the longest play in the whole wide Western world, and I become motion sick from sitting next to his shaking chair. On the street, Mark clearly has as little interest in continuing the night as I do. He barely offers to walk me to a cab. We say goodnight without looking each other in the eyes. The next morning, I take the drawing from my bag, smooth it out, and give it back to Sasha carefully. She looks crestfallen. This dating thing might be harder than I thought. Why, she asked. Well, I have to find someone I love who loves me and you. She considers this. How long do you think that will take, she demands. 6 years later. I'm still at it. Nope, I can't believe it either. I've gone on many more blind dates, though not through Sally, thank you very much. I've met one man I've wanted to commit to, and others I've wanted to have committed. Twitch, as we have came to call my very first blind date, has become a part of our story, mine and Sasha's. Rule number 3. Don't tell your child about every date you go on, blind or otherwise. She will A, risk developing an unhealthy pessimism about romance when she sees how many don't pan out. B, will never look at Winnie the Pooh in quite the same way again. And C, worst of all, she will tease you mercilessly for years to come. Thank you.